We're going to look forward here now to the Super Bowl. Twice Saturday. I thought the Super Bowl was yesterday. I was telling people, well, I'll probably... Oh, wait a minute. That's not right at all. I was telling Chris that, my friend Tina Fowler. It's like, no, next week. Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. I did not participate in what the NFL offered this week, something called the Pro Bowl.
What's that again?
I saw 2 plays of that. One, a sack celebration. Green Bay Packer player, or a Saints player, I don't remember who it was. I think it was somebody who complained about being snubbed for the Pro Bowl, then was actually in the Pro Bowl since there's 900 alternates for this thing. He celebrated, and they all gathered and celebrated after a sack, shooting a fadeaway jumper. That was the one moment I tuned into, is them honoring Kobe after a play. So that was probably the highlight of the game right there. If Rich Gannon's not quarterbacking this team to a championship in the AFC, I've tuned out, I think is what happened. But let's look ahead to the Super Bowl, where not a lot has changed on the line. It's still Kansas City by 1. The over-under is still 54.5 now. They've added that half. That'll make a big difference in the game when San Francisco scores that half a point to put it over. And it's still the matchup predictor on ESPN at 75%. I thought for Kansas City, as we got into this week, then maybe people would start to delve into things a little better, maybe watch a little film a little more, maybe look into things and go, oh, wait a minute. We may have underestimated this Niner team a little bit. It's better offensively than we thought. And the defense now healthy looks like the version of it from midseason. And it still has it. Do you think, Stephen, there's a little bit of a lack of respect or maybe some assumptions about what the larger NFL world thinks about the 49ers versus what those of us who see them every week actually know about this 49er team?
Yeah, it's ignorance.
Okay.
It's straight and flat out ignorance because now it's no secret in sports, East Coast bias or West Coast bias, because nobody wants to pay attention to what's going on out here because it's a different time zone. Maybe
it's real. That is a real thing because of how much later the games are.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And what you get are people looking at box scores. And you get people that, I'm guilty of this too when I don't have a chance to write down notes. Yeah. I'll just go straight to the box score. But the thing is, I watch the games.
Yeah.
And I use the box score to kind of help, give a backbone to my argument. So I have some stats to kind of back up what my takes are. But it appears nobody on ESPN does that. And it's, it's disrespectful in a way that here you are, it's the best team out of the NFC. It was the best team in the NFC all season, but they didn't get that respect. I mean, they were 9-0. It doesn't matter what your strength of schedule is. Yeah. You know how hard it is to go 9-0 in the NFL? Yeah. Ask the Patriots.
In your conference, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And so, I think it's ignorance. I don't think it's, they're just not paying attention, which is fine because this Niner team seems to play best when no one's paying attention. And like Richard Sherman said, that was about the midpoint in the season, for those of you that called us pretenders, you hold on to that. You keep calling us pretenders. And when you see us be successful, you always remember, you go back to what you said. So I don't want you changing your mind now. I want you to continue to call us pretenders.
Are we having a flip Bay Area bias here, Chris? Are we maybe being too sensitive to a feeling of a lack of respect? Or is it legit? What do you think of how the rest of the world looks at this Niner team?
No, I think I totally agree with you guys. I mean, I'm a Raiders fan. Obviously, I would try to bash the Niners in any way possible, but
as you should.
Yeah, exactly. But I would definitely have to agree with you guys. I mean, I think Tim, you noted, the West Coast bias is a thing. West Coast players get overlooked, and a prime example is Mike Trout of the Angels.
Yeah, that happens.
That exactly. And so I think that the Niners are getting overlooked in a way. I mean, you can't disregard the fact that, like Steven said, they started 9-0. They finished the season 13-3, number 1 seed in the NFC. But yet, I've seen, at least on NFL Live, all that, more of a hype, if you will, for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Mahomes being the great young stud coming off a reigning MVP season. Which by all means, you can credit him, whatever, but you can't overlook what Garoppolo's done for them this season. You can't overlook what the defense has done for them this season. You can't overlook really what Shanahan done, the front office has done to go from a team last year that was 4-12, and now to a Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl, and has a very good chance of winning. You can't. I really feel like they're still an underdog even up until now.
Yeah, it's strange. This isn't a 10-6 wild card we're talking about here, but that's how they get talked about. They're like in people's minds, they're this 9-7, 10-6 wild card that squeaked by and somehow lucked into a division, title, caught a lot of breaks. They're just defensive minded, and I don't know why that hasn't gone away. I mean, they all saw that final game against the Seahawks, clinching that division right there. It's like, oh, well, it came down to that last play. Okay, well,
that's football.
The Chiefs keep having to come from 17 down. Like, this isn't really a flawless team by any means either. Like, that's just how it shakes out. I'll never hand back that 99 Super Bowl championship for the Rams to anyone because it took Mike the Tackle Jones to make a stop at the half-yard line on Dyson. That's just how it works. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, the Niners only beat the Bengals by that touchdown with 36 seconds left that year to somehow devalue that title, with John Taylor catching one in the back of the end zone. It's not how it works, as Steven said. That's football. So, You know what I'm saying? So that's puzzling, and it's got to, like Chris said, come down to the two quarterbacks. I think everyone nationally is evaluating this entire game and how it's going to shake out by their preconceived conceptions of the two quarterbacks. Mahomes deserves every bit of hype he gets.
Without a doubt.
And I feel like Garoppolo is still this underestimated, small school, Brady's backup guy who really is inexperienced in the big picture. So I don't know if it's that like he needs to prove himself to everyone for this game, but boy, will things change in the Garoppolo narrative if he's just 6 of 8 like last game, if he does that role, fine. But if he throws it 20 times, pushes the 250-yard mark, has a positive touchdown to interception ratio, that will change the narrative. I just think it's sad that it's going to take that. Like, it's this 13-3, what he's done already hasn't done enough to change that narrative, even if he's not Mahomes. But to think that 65% chance of winning favors Kansas City, like Garoppolo and these Niners only have a 35% chance of winning because of this quarterback matchup, just still seems odd to me, even with the difference in the resumes of the two.
No, I agree. And 13-3, 3 losses by 13 points.
Yeah.
A combined 13 points. They were very close. I would say 3, maybe 4 at the most plays away from being undefeated on the season. I mean, you don't have a rookie kicker in there shank a punt, or shank a kick rather, a field goal. You're beating that.
Swept the Seahawks.
Yeah, swept the Seahawks. This is a 4-win team last year. I've said it before on the show. I've said it on Twitter. Garoppolo has put this team in a position to win every single game this year. And that's all you ask from your quarterback. He has not one time lost you a game because he made a devastating mistake to lose you the game. He hasn't done it. Now, Shanahan and Garoppolo will take what the defense gives them. So going 6 for 8 against the Packers made sense. But I kind of almost, Shanahan is that mad genius that I kind of almost think he did that on purpose.
Could be.
Because that will underestimate what Jimmy Garoppolo is capable of. Now, those of us that have watched the team all year, we know what he's capable of.
Sure.
And I want him to get the MVP, and I want them to stomp the Chiefs so bad because I want to have my I told you so moment because, I've been high on him since he threw 5 picks in practice. Like, we're talking about practice in the preseason. Like, I've been on his side, and I've had confidence in him since then.
Garoppolo this season, he threw for almost 4,000 yards. I mean, he was just under it, 3,978, 27 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. He completed almost 70% of his passes.
Just a tick below.
And yet there's still this, I don't know, a thought of what he is in people's minds versus what he's actually become I think it is the deal. I don't know if there's certain matchups within the season. He was so inexperienced, really, in the big picture. Tack on coming off of a knee injury, and I couldn't even bring myself to evaluate him until week 8, really. And that's that win against Arizona where he goes off for 317 yards, 28 of 37. That was my evaluation point beginning for him this season. Like, okay, this little bit of of experience for him coming off of an injury. Kid's got to get a half a season under his belt to really get his feet wet. And, they did a good job of sort of managing things with him going into that. But he had that game, well, it was the Bengals. But nonetheless, he had that 296 yards there, 243 against the Rams. That was kind of the first most important game of the season, that Rams game for them there. And remember, he was quite good in that one, 73% passing in that. Had the one INT, and then sure, there was some drops of other opportunities for the Rams, but then don't drop them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And it was funny. So it's funny you mentioned the Rams being the first kind of true test. Well, technically, that first 4-game stretch, people were picking them to go 1-3, maybe 2-2, maybe. And it just seemed like, and I think the disrespect or the kind of overlooking of the Niners goes all the way back to week 1 versus Tampa Bay against Jameis Winston. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a captain turnover, but it was kind of a pick 'em. The Niners only had 2 interceptions all of last season, so they weren't expected to get any. Richard Sherman had a pick 6. Mm-hmm. And so every week it was, this is their biggest test. This is their biggest test. Yeah. Oh, they're not beating this team. Oh, they're not beating that team. Even the Browns on Monday night were supposed to take care of the Niners. Mm-hmm. And the Niners just dismantled them.
Oh, yeah.
And it seemed like every big test that came up, the team that they annihilated fell off the map and the radar of everybody else. I mean, you've got the Rams, they were in the Super Bowl last year. Yeah. You've got Cleveland making all these off-season deals and all these moves that were supposed to be good. The Bengals, you didn't see making an 0-9 start.
Right.
And all these teams were supposed to be a test, going all the way up, all the way into the NFC Championship game versus the Packers.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but a lot of people were thinking the Packers could do this. And they've knocked down every criticism every step of the way, and here they are in Super Bowl 54.
Here they are in Super Bowl 54, and let's get these predictions. I don't think any of us have felt any differently either, so I guess we can't be too mad at this ESPN predictor because I'm not changing my thoughts on this one that much. Of it's still the Niners by in the 6-point range. I'm going to stick with that. I feel comfortable with that just because I know Patrick Mahomes presents a lot of problems. I'll admit I'm a pretty big fan of the guy. I enjoy watching him. And he's going to give the Niners problems. But the Chiefs' defense is inconsistent, a little sporadic. It'll have these takeaway moments. It'll have some great safety play at times. They'll make a big sack, but then they'll get gashed. And that is a bad type of defense to be against this Niner team who we've seen be the gasher more than once now.
Yeah, the Niners, whether they can go into a game running the ball like they did in the championship game and pass for only 8 times, or they can give it to Garoppolo and give it to 20 to 30. And that's the one thing with Jimmy G and these 49ers is that they'll go into the game, they'll take it week by week. They'll study, they'll do their homework on the teams, and they'll have to decide, and they usually come up with a game plan or whether or not, let's maybe run it a little bit more against the team because we know their weaknesses, or, Jimmy G, hey, you might have to step up this week. And, I was seeing something on NFL Live, and he was talking about it, just taking it game by game, week by week, and just giving you what the defense is handing to you right there at the moment in the game, adjusting, reading the defense, doing whatever you need to do in order to be successful, and that's what they've done up to this point right now.
What do you got for your prediction on this one? Were you leaning Chiefs last time?
I was leaning Chiefs. I was leaning Chiefs. I don't see. I'm not. Bay Area fans, bear with me. Not talking down on the Niners by any means, as I was just saying, but I just feel like the KC offense, Pat Mahomes, these receivers could have a day against not so quick secondary. Tyreek Hill, like I said, is going to be an X factor that we could see in the
Very
game. We know what Mahomes is capable of, as well as the opposite side, and that's the one thing too with whoever you decide to pick in these teams is that it's a pretty even matchup despite the matchup predictor with the Chiefs having a 65%, but I do have the Chiefs with a slight edge. 41-35 in a shootout.
Okay, so Chris has got the over. What do you got in this, Bab?
You both gentlemen are Raiders fans, so you remember Amy Trask.
Of course.
Shout out Amy Trask and hi.
Yes.
So last week she was on 95.7 The Game in an interview, and she described this Super Bowl matchup perfectly, and she called it delicious. Because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. This is, even if you're not a fan of the Niners, you're not a fan of the Chiefs, you're tuned into this Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's not the Patriots for the 57th millionth time. It's it's not the Eagles. Nobody really wants to see the Eagles come out of the NFC. Let's be honest. Nobody wants to see the Falcons. Yeah. The Rams were okay last year, but I realized I didn't even watch the Super Bowl last year. For the first time,
a whole lot to watch.
Yeah, for the first time in probably my life.
This guy cashed in on the under last year.
Yeah, there you go. So, it being delicious, thanks, Amy. The tastiest storyline for me is Jimmy G. Okay. He's my X factor for this because if he plays well, the Niners win. Mm-hmm. And I think the defense for San Francisco has enough to overcome the offense of Kansas City. Okay. Now, we talked about Kobe today. A lot of defenders and a lot of people that have played against Kobe said he's going to get his. Patrick Mahomes is going to get his. I mean, last week, Aaron Rodgers threw up for over 300 yards. He got his. Yeah. He didn't win. Yeah. He was getting blown out, but he still got his. LeBron will get his in the loss. He lost by 20 points when he took Kobe's spot in the three position on Saturday. Yeah. So Mahomes is going to get his. But I see him as being their offense isn't one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. It's fast. Mahomes is an X factor for them, but I don't think that their defense can match what the Niners offense can do. I have the Niners winning this game. I do have it being a high-scoring game. Mm-hmm. That being said, because Mahomes is still going to get his. Yeah. So I see it. I'm taking the over. 42-37 Niners.
Okay. This is one of those games where we try to figure out who's going to impose their will. Because people will say, well, okay, if the Niners impose their will, then this is going to be a defensive game. Maybe stick with the under. That might be the way to go. But we've seen them be a defensive ground and pound team and score 37 points. Yeah. So I don't know that that's an indicator of which way to go in this over-under. I got like a 31-24, 28-24 Niners in this. It's in that range as well. So, it's close. It's in that. I think things are going to be kind of right at this 55-point mark in this one with the Niners having the edge. The Niners, still yards allowed for the Chiefs is bad this year. I don't want to just go by yards allowed because they're winning a lot of games. Teams need to start chucking it. They back up a little bit, versus the Niners are fittingly a bit more Mamba. They are going to slowly strangle the air out of you. Mm-hmm. A little more boa constrictor, maybe even is the better. Slowly, as the game goes on, you're like, oh, we're in this. Boy, it's getting a little tight.
Is it warm in here? Is it? Oh.
Man, I was running real fast. Now, I'm out of air. And slowly, the air comes out of your team. Then you realize, oh, God, we are in their grip. We can't move. We're out of air. They're about to swallow us whole as the fourth quarter begins. Has been the pattern. Seahawks have put up a fight against that. Other teams have, put up a fight, but we did not expect that Green Bay team to look like some sort of field mouse again in the grips of this python that is the Niners team this season. They've made some teams look like that. That string that you talked about, Stephen, people didn't realize, thinking they were dealing with a garter snake, and next thing you know, they are crushed and swallowed whole. And that's what has kept happening. And the Chiefs' big flaw, they're a little bit like an Eagles team you're talking about. The Eagles still do some of the Andy Reid stuff. He left years ago, but they've kind of always kept hiring somebody like him, somebody from his tree, from the Bill Walsh tree, who's from the Al Davis tree. I'm going to throw that out.
Absolutely.
They keep that method got since it was John Gruden as the offensive coordinator throwing to Charlie Garner a bunch with the Eagles, much less when those two both came to the Raiders. The Chiefs are kind of like that. Their running backs are involved through the air, more so even than the handoff, at least where they make their contributions mostly. They can still score in the red zone with their running backs. They can get in goal line situations and score. Some of that is, though, about, wait, is Mahomes going to keep this? No, crap, the running back's already in there.
Yeah.
You know, when they get inside the 5, that complexity of who's going to have this ball creates problems. And that's where their running backs shine. But otherwise, getting them downfield that strength isn't exactly there for Kansas City. That's what the run game does. They will not be able to look like the Niners handing it to Mostert for these big gashing plays that keep the ball out of the other team's hands and gets points for you. Because that was a big key in that Green Bay game too. Is, you know, that was part of the strangling. You know, you talked about the time of possession wasn't really that different in that game. Wasn't a huge discrepancy, but especially in that first half, did enough to keep the Packers off the field offensively. We could even see the Niners bring it down another gear. Let's take this thing down to third from the fourth we were in, even instead of fifth or sixth, and really grind this thing out to keep it out of the Chiefs' hands, out of their offense's hands. And that's where the will get put in by the Niners. I don't think that they can. I don't think the Chiefs are going to impose their will of the run and gun, somewhat fast break type of team that they are. They're not quite Golden State Warriors football, but, you know, it's up there. It's a little bit of how they operate. I see that in a Super Bowl having a tougher time imposing their will, because even the flashy greatest show on turf I referred to handed that thing to Marshall Faulk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That was there. That guy's not there for the Chiefs. You know, that's not what they have. Priest Holmes was a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? So that guy's not there. And when the Niners have like 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a difference. I understand Mahomes can do a lot, but there's still things like I've argued with people like, I'm not that into when rappers are just talking about how good a rapper they are. I'm like, hey, that will always be there. That's 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yep.
Dump and chase, bunting. There's some staples that will always be in a sport. Some staples will always be in music. Rock bands going to talk about how hard they rock. Rappers going to talk about how good of a rapper they are. That just comes with it. That's the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And if you can't still do that, we've seen it in this postseason. If you can't still convert short yardage on the ground, it's still football, and that's not going to go well for you in some way, shape, or form. I know Mahomes can do it. He can keep it, roll out, work with it that way, but that's still this season, for as pass happy as the NFL is this year, this season, this postseason brought it all back to, okay, but you better be able to do step one and run this football. You better be able to control the clock in the times you need it. Better be able to manage the clock, Andy Reid, in the times you need it. These are all the little things that give the Niners the advantage for me. That's why I think they impose their will. That's why I think Chiefs maybe end up the field rat, the field mouse in this one, getting boa constricted, getting the air taken out of them, and are stuck in the grips before getting swallowed sometime in that fourth quarter by the boa constrictor that is the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, we've seen this Niner team go from boa constrictor to cobra.
Sure.
And strike fast.
Yeah.
And we just saw this Chiefs team in the last 2 games give up a ton of points in the first half.
Early.
You do that, you'll see cobra transform to boa and suck the life out of that, and they'll definitely hit in the under, because if they start doing that,
Yeah.
Now this Chiefs team has not seen a front 7 as fast from sideline to sideline.
Probably not.
As this Niner team. I mean, I don't know any other defense.
Tennessee ain't bad.
They're not bad, but they weren't doing
it's
much.
not this, yeah.
Yeah, they got tired.
You're right.
We've seen the depth of this Niners team, because now they're actually #full strength.
Yeah.
And we've seen, even Kyle Shanahan came out and said that he's been a fan of the Warriors for a long time, and he enjoyed their early playoff runs and championships, that strength in numbers, and being able to plug pieces in and out and have everybody step up and do their job. And, just real quick, Richard Sherman last week had a great soundbite when he was talking about Mostert, and he was talking about how this team puts people in position to be successful in the system. And he's like, and he was even saying he doesn't like the term like a system player, but this system makes you successful, and it makes you play at your best, and everybody holds each other accountable, and they enjoy this system. They enjoy fighting for each other, and that's why they enjoy fighting for Garoppolo. They enjoy fighting on defense, and they have come together as one unit and are in this together. And it doesn't matter, Jimmy throws 8 passes, Jimmy throws 42 passes. They trust him to get it done. And that's what I think is appealing about this team.
I'm going to ask you each a strategic question from the point of view of the team you're picking in this one. So, Chris, I want you to think about, if you're the Chiefs, how do you move the ball on these Niners? Some of your keys to success there. And how do you stop them from running it down your throat? Steven, I want you to think about, how do you deal with the Chiefs' weapons? Mull that over for about 5, 6 seconds, 10 seconds here as I talk about what a great weekend it was to have the NHL All-Star Game in St. Louis this past weekend. A lot of fun, a lot of 10-year-old Tim popping up from his grandparents' basement, watching the Blues and enjoying all the boyhood idols they brought out. But one thing that was something I was on the other side of with all my Blues players was Jordan Binnington showing up in a Patrick Mahomes jersey. Ryan O'Reilly's wearing a Chiefs helmet during warm-ups on the ice. Like, there's no NHL team in Kansas City, and you can tell the Blues are trying to kind of win that market over a little bit. Much like Kansas City's trying to win that market over as a football with the Rams having left. They're each trying to get in each other's market a little bit there. So that was the one where I was like, okay, I don't think I can like this one on Instagram. I'm going to step back from that one a little bit. Chris, how do you attack the Niner run defense and keep them from running it down your throat?
So one of my few keys to the success for the Chiefs in order to win this one would be, establishing the run game. It's going to be a tough test.
Yep.
It's going to be real tough against a Niner defense that's good all the way around, both run defense and pass defense, top 5 in nearly, or I should say even top 3 in nearly every defensive category that there is this year. But I would definitely say, give Williams the ball, maybe run it with Mahomes, read option, just to kind of see if you can get something early on. And that's the thing. It's got to be early. Establish it on the first or second drive. Make sure that the Niners know that, hey, you're not going to just leave it up to Mahomes to pass it 40, 50 times in this Super Bowl, because if Mahomes is going to have to get to that point, I don't see the Chiefs even having a chance. So run the ball, one. Number 2, get Tyreek Hill going early on. And as I mentioned in the show prior, get risky with it. First play of the game, maybe even do a play action, run the ball, second down, play action off the run off the first, and then heave it up to Tyreek, get him started early on. And then the third one for the Chiefs would definitely be to contain Garoppolo. It's going to be a tough test on what the Niners do. No one really knows what the Niners are going to do, whether they're going to run the ball or pass the ball. That's the thing. The Chiefs are going to be a pass-heavy offense. Going into there. But the Niners, whatever they're exactly, they're a wild card going in that you really don't know until kickoff, until they take that first snap on offense. Right. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the threat about
even them. Then you don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. They can switch it up in the middle of the game. They can adjust, and then that's what's made them successful all year is, riding the wave, not breaking that, and going with it. But if you're the Chiefs, you got to contain Garoppolo and contain the run. That's really, that whole Niner offense is going to come at you hot and heavy. Leading by Jimmy G's good looks. So you gotta contain them, and that's the thing. I don't know if the Chiefs are gonna have success with the speedy wide receivers as far as man coverage. So you might see them playing a lot of zone. In the Super Bowl. I could see that going. Don't allow a deep ball. Keep it in front of you. Maybe even load up the box. And just to kind of see mix and match. You got to keep the Niners on their toes, and you got to change some things up. You can't go with the same thing necessarily the entire time. It's a Super Bowl. Everything goes, and you got to pull out some tricks. You saw the Eagles do it the other year with the play against the Patriots.
Philly.
Exactly. So you got to pull some tricks out of the bag. And Andy Reid, we've
has
known
a big
him.
bag on.
Yeah, Andy Reid. We've seen him over the years, kind of become too conservative, too overthinking, overcalling
he'll get
games.
too cute at times, yeah.
Exactly. And so getting too cute with it. And that's another thing, too. So, I mean, if the Chiefs want to win this game, one, establish the run, get Tyreek Hill in the passing game going as much as you can. And three, you gotta contain Jimmy G in the Niner offense.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you this right now, that whole falling behind thing the Chiefs did in the 2 games in the playoffs, that will not work against the 49ers. And that's kind of one of my big reasons to pick the Niners in this too, is if the Chiefs come out with those slow starts again, forget about it. Because like you talked about, Stephen, whichever version of reptilious monster they need to be, the quick strike, hell, they were a water moccasin against the Redskins in D.C. in a sloppy, rainy field before. They've been able to be whatever they wanted to be. That's kind of been one of the key things about the Patriots. They can turn into a different team every week, offensively. And if the Chiefs fall back again, I do not like their chances against this 49er team. If you're the Niners, Steven, how do you deal with Tyreek Hill, Watkins, a lot of these different weapons at tight end, and Kelsey? How do you deal with all the different things Kansas City can throw at you offensively?
Well, I'm going to start real quick on the offensive side of the ball and kind of piggyback on what Chris had mentioned about play action. And I think the Niners need to establish that as well, just because they're so effective with the run. Play action to kind of deceive the defense and then pass. But, Chris, you mentioned a key for Kansas City is taking away the Niners' run. Well, that kind of plays into my prediction of Jimmy being an X factor in actually getting the MVP, because keeping the wide receivers in front of you hasn't always been easy this season with the Niners receivers. You've got Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle that are fantastic yards after the catch. Yeah. And they're great at breaking tackles, and they're great at deceiving the defense. We've seen Deebo, on end around routes, jet sweeps, break it off for 25 yards. And that's with him in front of you. But what happens is the zone blocking scheme of the Niners front offensive line gets downfield so good, and they create traps and blocks in different levels of the field. And so that could be a problem. Even if you do take away the run and you do other things, the Niners will establish a play action. So on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers, it's all about getting upfield and getting into the backfield. And, Travis Kelce is not a great blocking tight end, but he is great in the pass game. So if you're able to get upfield and pressure, he might try to chip block and then leak out, kind of like what George Kittle does. But he's not as effective as doing that. He's more effective as getting off the line and running his route, not necessarily trying to take a linebacker with him and then end around, kind of like what Kittle does, because Kittle will make it look like a running play. And then before you know it, he's 10 yards down the field catching the ball and going for 20. Yeah. And so I do think for the Niners front, is all about getting the pressure. You're not going to be able to 100% contain Mahomes. It's just not possible. He's too gifted. He's too athletic. He always has his eyes down the field. He has these insane throwing angles. Yeah. And, he is able to throw the ball in so many different ways. That's fine. But as fast as Tyreek Hill is, he still needs time to get down the field. Yeah. And as great as Travis Kelce is, he still needs to get off the line and get down there. Well, you bring somebody like Fred Warner in off the edge just to chip Kelce on his way into the backfield, Kelsey's going to let him go. Mm-hmm. Kelsey's going to let him go so he can develop his route. Now, we've seen Fred Warner. I mean, he's sacked Aaron Rodgers. He's had a monster season since he's, come in replacement for Quan Alexander early in the year. And it's just hard for me to imagine them not being able to get pressure and them not being able to get to Mahomes. So I think that's the key for the Niner defense, is getting into the backfield. Our DBs, I've got enough confidence in them to be able to contain. I mean, Tyreek Hill's fast. I mean, there's no getting around that. Yeah. But he needs time.
That might be it. Yeah. Is the thing.
Yeah. And I mean, he needs time though. Like, and there's ways our DBs have actually done a good job of disguising coverages where it looks like a zone, boom, man to man, and then they'll actually shift back into zone depending on the side of the field that they're on.
And that's something Tyreek Hill isn't really good at. We'll see him run the wrong route. We'll see Mahomes having a talk with him after, hey, no, that was supposed to be, because the NFL now, it's used to maybe grab your face mask, your pants or whatever to kind of hint at what route you're running based on when you look at the defense. Now it's all assumed. You look at each other, You look at the coverage, okay, you should know what you're doing here. Sometimes there's still hand signals involved, but mostly it's a lot of, okay, when we're in this look and they're in that look, you're supposed to do this. So if there's not a lot to give away, maybe, so your signals aren't video recorded by someone. And we've seen he'll screw that up.
We have. And so last week, there was a wrinkle against the Packers. The Niners defense was actually having Sherman travel. And it was broken down.
Way more than often, yeah.
Yeah, it was broken down even further that depending on which hash mark the Packers were lining up on, depended on where Sherman was going to be. And so if I'm blanking on the receiver's name, Cobb. No, not
Adams.
Cobb. Adams. Yeah, 2012 was Cobb.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, so if Adams was on the defensive right, which Sherman's always on the defensive left, Sherman would travel if they were on the far hash mark because it gave him less of a gave Sherman less of a field to have to cover going back into coverage. Now, if it was the opposite and, they had more field on that side and they're lined up on the defensive left half mark, Sherman would stay on the left because it gave him less field to have to cover because he's able to use the sideline as a defender. Now, that's just one wrinkle that we hadn't seen all year from this solid defense. And so we're going to see a lot of things that Shanahan and Saleh are going to kind of pull out of the bag. I mean, you give Shanahan 2 weeks to prepare for a team.
Indeed.
This is the whole first quarter is going to be scripted and it's going to be insane.
I don't normally fanboy out too much with these type of statements before about, oh, this guy sucks or this guy, oh, he's terrible or whatever. I might say it about tackle Eric Fisher of the Chiefs, okay? That's the Raider fan of me coming out. I don't think he can handle the defensive ends of the Niners. I'm going to tell you that right now. I think he's going to get eaten alive out there. Right on national television in front of everybody. I think he's going to get eaten alive. They're having to use Stefan Wisniewski at guard right now. Boy, that guy just keeps backup linemening his way into Super Bowls. He was on the Eagles team a couple years ago. Now here he is with the Chiefs again. A subpar center at best. Yeah. Now being a decent guard. But I don't like that interior offensive line's chances of dealing with the defensive tackles in the Niners. Not in the least. This is what the Niners have been doing for the past 3 years is stocking up on front seven. And that's the depth that Steven is talking about. And I do not like the Chiefs' chances of dealing with Buckner and company. I just don't. I think it's going to go poorly for them. That's one of my other keys in this game. Let's talk about the prop bets here as we wrap up Super Bowl preview talk. Okay. The first one you're going to understand why I'm giggling. Courtesy of the Miami New Times, down there in Miami where the Super Bowl will take place, they have culled together what they thought were the weirdest prop bets of this one. Number 10 on the weirdest list. Will Jennifer Lopez show butt cleavage during the halftime show? I'm sorry. So I guess if she's going to wear a thong or something.
Okay. Yeah. Are we allowed to say butt cleavage? No, I'm kidding.
We did. From the Miami New Times, believe it or not, this is a thing.
Is it an over-under on how many times, or is it just
it's
either
an odds if yes or no.
I'm putting 20 on yes out of hope.
I'll do the yes, too.
You got it. So, we'll go with that one. Then we're back to what color will the Gatorade shower be? Right now, lime green yellow at plus 275, purple plus 1400. So right now, lime green yellow, as I thought, would be in the lead in this one, of course. Will J-Lo or Shakira be caught lip syncing?
It's going to be tough, I think, for Shakira.
I don't know where I am on this in general anymore right now as a thing, because you're like, boy, they're at a live, nationally televised thing in a football stadium. Like, people on Saturday Night Live can't go without some sort of overdub happening, much less whatever the heck they're calling Miami's football stadium these days. Land Shark Field or whatever they've gone to, some sort of...
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. You think they're going to go yes on some lip syncing?
On some. I don't think it'll be complete, but I do because...
you just kind of have to a little.
Yeah. And Shakira's like, her vocal variations and what she does is really difficult to duplicate in a live setting.
While trying to dance around.
Plus it's the, you have to get in, you have to get out. Yeah, it's, even though it's like a 30-minute halftime show, like you're not there for the whole 30 minutes. And J-Lo, she's been out of the game a long time. I mean, when was the last time she dropped an album? I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
I mean, not that I'm a huge fan, but so it, it's one of those things where they will get caught at some point lip singing. I don't think it'll be the whole thing though.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Any thoughts on your lip syncing?
I'll agree with Steven there.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be entirely, but I do think maybe in a moment when hey, they need a break.
It's just some of the overdub stuff. I'm kind of like, okay.
And a lot of people do it nowadays. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Here's one. Apparently, MC Hammer is going to be in a Cheetos commercial.
Yes.
So, of his best phrases, will he say "hammer time," "too legit," or will he say "you can't touch this"?
You can't touch this.
That's
for
what
sure.
I'm leaning towards.
Yep.
Yeah.
In those 3 phrases. God bless him. All right.
I love him.
How many times will Donald Trump tweet during the Super Bowl?
I have him muted. I don't know.
As you should. Let's see. How many times will Alex Rodriguez be shown during halftime
Ooh.
while J-Lo is up there? Because
3.
A-Rod's going to be in his own suite.
He's got that panic smile on his face, like, oh my gosh, she's up there on the stage where everyone can see her. What are they saying?
Let's see. It's at over under. Is it a half of a time? Which I don't know quite how you work that out.
I'll do it over, definitely.
Yeah. I think he'll get a couple looks. is
Yeah,
my-
absolutely over.
I'm going way over.
Yeah.
And he'll also have that kind of like jealous look that he's not in
Yeah.
the spotlight.
Exactly.
Yes, right.
Exactly. I'd say 3 to 5 times.
How many?
Yeah.
How many commercials are going to include a dog? Your over under is 3.5 right now.
Over.
Easy.
It's a quick commit right there. But, I mean, these are the weird ones, courtesy, again, of the Miami New Times. But then you can get into the minutia of the game. There's thousands of them. Like, will the opening kickoff be a touchback? Total kickoff returns made. The team to score first, of course. The first score, what will it be? Defensive touchdown, field goal, rushing, receiving. There's all these little prop bets just that could take all your money away if you like, everyone. Or have it go big, either or. So there's your Super Bowl preview. Feeling ready for it. Super Bowl 54 coming up this Sunday in Miami. Niners taking on the Chiefs.